I'm Evangeline. I am the Open Research Coordinator at the University of Reading, and I also do some qualitative work. So at the moment, I have an interview study on what makes people share or not share their data. And as you can imagine, qualitative data is a lot more difficult to share than standard quantitative data for a whole host of ethical reasons that make it gives us really uncomfortable feelings as qualitative researchers, like myself included, to the point that about a year and a half ago, I found myself in a conversation with somebody who very, very reasonably asked, hey, you know all that data you have about how to get people to share their data? Can you share it? And my immediate reaction was no, leave me alone, stop asking difficult questions. And I was there for about a week. And then my thinking brain kicked in. And with it, my fear of being a massive hypocrite. So I thought, okay, I should probably at least look at it. So I started to engage in a frankly unproductive amount of time going through a whole bunch of guidance that said some really unhelpful stuff like consider the ethical issues when you're making your qualitative data open. And while I was doing that, I also came across the beginnings of a body of literature that started to talk about and raise concerns with the increasing number of open data mandates and open data strong suggestions and what that might look like and mean for qualitative researchers. And I also started to talk to people in both the open science and the qualitative research communities about open data. And when I met the very small number of people for whom those two identities overlapped, I started hearing the same story that I was having, which was that they were confused and they felt isolated. But unlike me, they didn't have the luxury of time that comes from being on an open research contract that basically meant that I could justify all of this time that I was spending trying to work out how to do this. So I thought this is probably something that I can help with. And also I can alleviate some of my own anxieties by conducting a scoping review to extract all of the actionable actions from amongst all that kind of very vague guidance. And I did that partially to reduce the burden of time on other qualitative researchers and all that sort of very community-minded stuff. But I also, to be honest, had very, very low expectations. So partly I just did it to basically demonstrate to policymakers that there really isn't enough guidance out here. So it's really unfair to ask or to tell qualitative researchers to share their data and then be like, just go figure it out yourself. Yeah, basically, I had the longest and most structured shop of my life. This whole project was just a 6-month tantrum, but it ended all right because it ended in this, so I used the scoping review to create a table-based tool that kind of guided people through the literature to the actual helpful stuff that was out there. And I have been going to conferences and events and anywhere that will take me and presenting this, and I get 2 reactions. So the first reaction that I get is thank you. Qualitative researchers say thank you, which is really, really lovely and validating for me. I remember the first time that I did this, I was in an open qualitative event and people put their hands up and the first person just said, I don't have a question, I just wanted to say thank you very much for doing this for us. And that was really, really sweet. And I was happy. It also kind of highlighted to me how much qualitative researchers need qualitative data stewards to help them through this huge and really scary thing that they've been doing. The second reaction that I tend to get is people say, okay, this is great, but how are you going to maintain it? I don't have an answer to that. My contract ends in a year. This is a stationary resource. And obviously, in order to do this, we need some kind of expert knowledge. And as it currently is, we don't have a way of cultivating that. So these kind of resources are only ever going to reflect this period of time that the interested individual had to spend on them. And I think that takes me on to the next question of why is it important that we support qualitative data stewards? So there are real benefits to sharing qualitative data, which is expensive and difficult to collect. But there are also real risks to doing it badly. So for example, my background, I've had to share data on people's experiences using the mental health care system in prisons, which was very, very difficult, and for some reason fell on my back as a very junior researcher with very, very little time. And I still think that's a little bit unfair. And I think that's so important that I want to talk about it very briefly. So this is a review where people went and read all of the guidance that they could find from from journals on open data. And they found that of 257 journals that accepted qualitative data, only 3 mentioned qualitative data. And when they did mention qualitative data, it tended to be like a link to another article that would link to another article that would link to another article, and it would just be like this chain of unhelpful citations, which is kind of what I've had. And ultimately, one of the researchers from this came out of this exercise saying, I don't have any better understanding of what qualitative data journals wish to be made available than I did before starting this project, which is sad to me. So, to summarize, as support currently stands, the risks of making it qualitative or sharing qualitative data is high, because it relies on the goodwill of time-pressured researchers who, frankly, this usually isn't their passion. They're not usually that invested in it. And so when we find people who are invested and passionate, it's really important that we don't lose that passion due to a lack of established career options. And I think, so that's kind of why I was very interested in this whole CaSDaR thing, because when I was asked to talk at this, I had a conversation where Louise asked me, like, are you going to go do this properly? And I said, no, because I have absolutely no idea how I would go about doing that. So I feel like this is the point of this event, and I hope that in future someone like me might have a clearer route to doing that. Thank you.